like owl echoes and kind of these pro echoes from, like normal people. And maybe not what separates them, but more kind of what habits do they have, what behaviors do they have that makes them so good at that character, right? Echo is a really complicated character in general, kind of like when we talked about Diva last time. Really complicated. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things you can do. You have a lot of things you can set up for. You can play like way more spammy, right? You've got the ability to do that. You've got the ability to dive. You've got the ability to play more of like a kind of brawlish play style, like on more of a side angle, right? You've got a lot of things you can do. You know what I mean? So that's what I feel like makes Echo so difficult to understand. But when you break it down and when you look at it, and you look at scenarios and you look at scenarios for what they are, you look at matchups for what they are, you look at kind of players and like what they have in their wheelhouse, and you'll be able to see that there are some specific things in certain situations that are the best thing to do. And within those things, there are a lot of really good habits to build up, and there's a lot of really good general like just basics, I guess, that can be applied to anyone, any Echo player. Um, that can make them while they won't be able to emulate exactly what these pros do and to like the level they do, you can at least you know, improve your play at least. You can at least understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, and maybe apply that to the rest of the game, maybe apply that to your scrims, maybe apply it to ranked, right? Those kind of things. So that's kind of the goal. Looking at pro players, kind of breaking down why they do things, how they do things, and kind of talking about why they're so good at this character that is extremely difficult, but also has like insane carry potential. So, um, I've got like the way I want to do this is I'm gonna bring up a few points and say like a few. I've got like 5 or 6 or 7 points that are like these are the things that I think you know are really setting up these players to make them as good as they are. And then I'm gonna go through like 6 or 7 situations, just kind of watch the fight and point out things as they come. Um, you know, rather than going like, hey, they have this they have this thing that goes really well for them, and I'm going to show an example of that. I feel like there's so many things that go on in an Echo player. There's so many habits. There's so many things that they do that happen in succession. It's really hard to be like, here's a situation where they are really disciplined with how they position, and then show just that. I feel like showing that in isolation doesn't really do anything. I kind of want to bring up these points and then show specific situations that maybe exemplify that, or but they're in tandem with an actual scenario where things are going on. There's a lot of things happening, right? So, let me find out. I think white's just fine. So we just look at, I think right here is good. So, actually no, I was gonna do, so I'll just white first, cancel. So if we just put echo, right, talking about echo, right, and then if we look at, so number one, like if we look at just things that separate pros, number one is a pretty simple, straightforward one. Just look at just straight up mechanics. Fuck, fuck, dude, I can't write. I'm writing with a mouse. Right. Just, I mean, simply, these pro players are insanely mechanically strong, right? They do it for a living. Obviously, they're going to be very good at it. Um, so you'll see that a lot of the best actors in the world just have extremely good mechanics, can hit a lot of shots. It's pretty straightforward. I will say, if you want to work on that, um, something that I think a lot of Echo players are lacking on, or a lot of players in general are lacking on, is just the ability to have really good close tracking, right? If you want to be a good Echo player, get better at close tracking so you can hit a lot more stickies, you can hit a lot more shots close up. Hitting shots from far away on a projectile character is generally not that hard, right? It's just kind of spamming. It's really not an issue. Get better at close tracking. That's going to improve your Echo mechanics really fast, right? Close tracking is really what separates a lot of these really, really good echoes from just normal echoes, right? Also, there's like decision making stuff, but when it comes to just mechanics, that close tracking is really what separates players. Um, so next is more of an under is kind of going into like the thought process and how you play is understanding, right? So understanding help and understanding attention, right? So this goes two ways. So when I say help, I mean your team, and then attention, I mean enemy team, right? So really good Echo player has a really good understanding of what help their team can give them, what help their team can like provide to them to help them do what they want to do. And they also have a really good understanding of where the enemy's attention is, right? So if we think from, if we just look from a basic perspective, you're playing Echo in like a double shield mirror, right? Your team, you understand that you're when your tanks push, they're providing more space for you and they're pulling some attention from the enemy team. So your team is helping by pushing up. They're pulling attention from the enemy team, right? You have a Mercy with you. That's some help going your way, right? Their Echo's focusing your front line. That's attention going their way, right? So a really good Echo can read the situation and understand, okay, I have this kind of help, right? I have a pull coming in from my Orisa. I have my Mercy on my back, and I have like a Discord on backline, right? That's help in my direction. He understands team enemy attention too, right? If my tanks aren't pushed up, the enemy Ashe, for example, has no reason to not look at me, right? So there's more reason that there's more threats to me, and there's more being put my direction, and it makes my job harder, right? So a really good Echo understands the kind of help that their team can give them, whether it be Mercy Pocket, whether it be Brig Packs, whether it be pulls, whether it be EMP, whether it be slams, right? All these kind of factors that help you do your job. A really good Echo has an understanding of that. But they also have an understanding of where the enemy team's attention is, what's going to draw the enemy team's attention away from them. Because while Echo is pretty self sufficient, if she gets focused down and isolated, she's really easy to kill. Pretty big hitbox. If she gets hacked, right? Tracer does a really good job of marking out echoes on angles, right? If you understand where that attention is being pushed, you can understand where the weak spots are and push those in response to that, right? Um, Next is, like in positioning, kind of understanding your help and attention, right? But there's also setting angles. Setting angles, right? A good echo understands that one of their main goals is to set an extra angle, right? And to use their mobility as a way to threaten the enemy team, whether it be tanks, whether it be DPS, out of their favorable positions, right? They're playing aggressively to set an angle and push people out of space that they want to take, or push people into unfavorable space so that they can take better fights, right? You're trying to set these angles to force better positioning, to get more value over time from your spam, and also to set yourself up in a position where you can dive when you find the opportunity to, right? And setting angles is really an important part of that because it just puts more threat on their front line, it puts more threat on their DPS, right? But also, you need to be able to understand when those, like when you can take those angles, when you can't take those angles, timing that, understanding when to evacuate those angles, right? Understanding when to evacuate that angle for a dive, when to back up to team, right? Having understanding of that so you can make sure you're not dying, right? Make sure you're not just dying for no reason, right? And that kind of goes into number 4, which is playing life, right? Playing life. I know that was ugly, but I don't really care, right? Another thing about Echo is playing life, right? As I said, Echo is a really diverse character. She can do a ton of things. She has a bunch of different playstyles. So understanding that just living, you can get a lot of value on Echo, right? Just spamming out tanks, right? Setting an angle, pressuring on one side of a map while your team pushes another. Just living will do a lot more than if you go in, die, and immediately lose all your value, if that makes sense, right? So playing your life is an extremely important part of Echo, and making sure you have this uptime so you can do stuff like set angles and punish opportunities, right, that you find. So just playing life and not going in and dying for no reason. And playing life is partially not inting, right, making sure you have help, being aware of where enemy attention is. It's kind of a culmination of just being aware of what's going on around you, right? Make sure you're playing your life, not dying for no reason. And if you are going in and trading, making sure you're getting enough out of that to make that trade worth it, right? So getting the most out of like that life that you have. You know what I mean? Not in like a philosophical way, but um and then next is kind of discipline. Discipline, I believe that's spelled right. Right, discipline. And what I mean by discipline is not wasting cooldowns, being extremely efficient with how we're using them, right? Like for example, Echo Fly, right? If we look at when an Echo uses Fly, generally using it to maintain or set an angle, right? They're using their cooldowns to get the most out of them, but also not in, when I say discipline, not wasting them, but also not setting themselves up, like not using cooldowns and then leaving themselves out to dry, right? So when they fly, they'll either fly in to finish a fight or they'll fly and reset in a safe spot, right? So either you're using your fly to set up or to go in extremely aggressively, or you're going up, setting an angle, and backing up, right? Being extremely disciplined. Thank you, Kyle. Let's rock it. I said Kyle. I'm not calling you Kyle, but being extremely disciplined. Okay. Um, and like specifically when I look at discipline, the thing that I look at mostly is like where they end their flies, right? When they use fly, and where they end up at the end of that. Next is being opportunistic, right? Opportunistic is kind of a secondary to kind of these things before, right? They have strong mechanics so they can punish opportunities, right? They understand what help they have so they know what opportunities they can go on, if that makes sense, right? They understand where the enemy's attention is so they know when they can dive, right? They set angles so they're in a position to punish opportunities, right? But when those opportunities come, they take them, right? There's no hesitation, they go, right? So opportunistic and I guess decisive would be another good word to put in there. But that's another characteristic that sets these players apart, right? They're not AFK. They set these angles, they're playing their life, they're living so that when these opportunities come, they can go and make plays, right? Whether it be with just stickies and diving or whether it be with an ult, right? With a copy, they can make opportunities. Also, their team goes down one or two, the fight's not over because they're in a spot to live and punish opportunities, right? So, big ratio. All right. Um, and then last that I have is just like an extremely strong, I just missed a letter, strong macro understanding, right? And when I say strong macro understanding, it's just understanding how your comp works versus their comp, right? All it is understanding what my comp wants to do versus them and how I need to adjust my play style to, make the most out of that matchup, right? To punish any opportunity that I find and to get the most value out of my early spam, right? Be able to know when to go in, right? Knowing what opportunities to look for, right? So, like strong macro understanding, understanding where to play, when to play, like when to go in, when to not, when to sit back, right? These players generally have that. I'm not so like with these 7 points that I have, I'm not saying that they're perfect, right? Players miss shots, players make mistakes, players overestimate themselves, they underestimate themselves, they don't push every opportunity, they make mistakes, right? They're not going to be perfect every time. But a lot of the time, they're doing all these things correctly, and it shows up in how much damage they're getting done and how much their team is winning fights, right? And how much the team plays around them. Like these players that I'm going to look at specifically are known for being insanely good echoes, right? They're extremely talented players, each and every one of them in their own rights, but you know, it's because they're being extremely consistent in the habits they have built up from kind of understanding these characteristics that I point out. Um, that puts them in that conversation for being like the best echo in the world, right? Um, so yeah, I guess we'll get into like looking at some VODs now. All right. Also, kind of with this, like this discipline, I guess something I should put in here is patience, right? Patience. I'll put patience there too, because that's a really good characteristic to put. Um, how do you reconcile being disciplined and opportunistic at the same time? So when I say being disciplined and looking for opportunities, it's understanding what opportunities are good ones, right? Understanding what when someone is feeding and when you can actually do something about it, right? We'll look at a situation actually right now when it comes to Pelican versus Pelican versus the San Francisco Shock in a spam mirror, right? So we'll look at that first. So I'll have a little bit of audio, but all right. So macro wise, first and foremost, it's almost a direct mirror. Um, Echo Mercy, both teams have like a hit scan ish variant, double shield BAP, right? Pretty simple. And in this situation, spam v spam, and Atlanta is pushing space. They don't have map control. They've got to break map control. So what you'll see is that kind of when you're pushing space, I know we talked about setting angles, but because Atlanta doesn't have map control, they have to work to set up angles. They have to work to push out space, set their tanks up in a solid position to live, and then set their DPS up on angles where they can get value, right? They can't just take angles for fun and go in because they're going to die because they have worse positioning, right? So if like Pelican just flies in and goes for a dive, he's going to die, right? Glister will punish him, Super Choi. Literally everyone on the other team will shoot him and he will die, right? So Pelican has to be extremely aware of where his team is positioned, when they can go in, what angles have been forced out, and that's like the attention side of it. Where his team is, that's understanding the help side of it, right? He's got to be disciplined the whole time. He's got to position himself in a place where he can live, right? Setting angles, and we'll kind of see all these things that we talked about going on. So what we'll see is because they're pushing space, you'll see pokes up, scouts a little bit, gets information. He understands that on spam too. All he's doing is spamming out, but he's not overcommitting, right? Plays to live, just spamming out. All he has to do is spam out, right? Because we're not playing to win right now. We're playing to win later, right? We don't need to win at this moment. All he has to do is just live. He's just trying to spam out tanks and help his tanks set up. He understands that once his tanks are set up, it's way easier for him to go do stuff and get stuff done. So he's helping them set up by spamming out enemy tanks, right? Spamming a little bit, spams out their Ashe, right? Still playing with team because they don't have full control yet. At this point, they start getting resource advantage on frontline, right? They force out, I believe, E, they force out gold, they force out shields, so he can go way more aggressive. And he does. He understands that enemy's attention is pulled back, they have to back up, and he can take a way more aggressive angle. Also, Glister got forced out of, what's it called? Out of Cafe, so he can take a way more aggressive angle. And Pelican can just live here. He's got a Mercy Pocket now, and he can just stay here, right? And then, Grim, this is what I was talking about when it was punishing opportunities. When it's like, okay, sure. Like, something to note when it comes to Echo 1v1s, generally the Echo that flies second, if you're taking a direct duel, will win, right? Because it's much easier to track an Echo that is drifting down than it is to track an Echo that has fly up. So if you go on an Echo after they use fly, it's way easier to track them, get a full sticky and beam, right? But depending on the situation, that's not something you should go for, right? So right now, Pelican sees, sure, Nero goes for a fly right here and he goes to spam. But the distance between them is too far for Pelican to actually go and punish that. So he's disciplined and waits for it, right? And we'll see opportunities later. It's like right here, like even though there's flies, he just plays to live, right? And then here, sure, he sees that Nero's alone. He could go for that, but he's on the back end of his fly and he's not going to win this. So he backs up, right? And still, he's maintaining this angle, spamming out and just living. Right? There's no reason to go in yet because there's so much distance to cross, right? He understands his help. He understands where his team is. He's just playing to live, playing his value, playing this spam, and he doesn't need to do anything yet, right? They don't have ults to push with. They use window, right? Gator ends up getting stuck on an angle, gets killed, right? He has to back up now, right? Just looking to maybe make a play. Gets a little bit of spam out. Again, living, patient, spamming at angles, lives for a second, and then backs up. Right, gets a little bit of extra, he gets copy off that, perfect. Right? While it might not look like he's doing too much, he's doing a ton by just pressuring angles, forcing people out, and his team just makes a mistake on positioning, right? Not really his fault. Here's same thing again, but something to note about Echoes is when you have copy, you can do way more, right? Copy changes when I talk about help and talk about attention, right? One thing about help is that you can think of copy as a just full free 600 health, right? You copy a tank, most people are going to copy a tank, probably just the best bet overall, right? Generally in most matchups, tank's just good, right? Diva, Sig, really, really good ones. But when you have copy, you don't need to worry as much about help because as long as you're patient and you go in when your team is pulling attention, you won't get focused down immediately, right? There is an issue of like, oh, I copy and then I get focused down. Well, if my team's in and my team is forcing a fight, it's much harder to focus down a copy, right? So now that Pelican has copy, he doesn't need to worry about his team. So his team plays together, they play as 5, and he goes on a solo flank, right? Nero goes for a copy first, but what Pelican does is Pelican sets a flank, and his team just has to live, right? Goes in, mechanics, goes in, full stickies FD God, hits a beam on him too, right? Kills him, and goes for a copy. Really good copy. Spams out, gets a really good rock, really good flux, forces out lamp, and keeps pushing an angle. Right? Backs up, lives for a second. This is just Sigma, but either way. Like, makes an extremely good play just by setting an aggressive angle when he has copy. But in that early fight, his team was doing a really good job pushing, but just fumbles the bag on positioning, right? They push really aggressive with resources they didn't have, and then back up. But Pelican lives, does a really good job this entire fight, and at this point, they're up 1. He backs up, plays Mega Pack. Again, just lives. He understands his help. He understands he can't keep fighting that until his team's pushing in. right? He tries to make a play, backs up, understands he doesn't hit full stickies, he can't really win that, backs up, plays for team. Backs up, gets his help, and now we can go aggressive again, right? It's like he's holding aggressively, and he's looking for plays, but if the opportunity's gone, he leaves. He's disciplined because he's not pushing super aggressive opportunities for no reason. He pushes when he sees something, right? Right? So, also we'll look at how they play on defense. So macro-wise on defense, the difference is when you're on defense, you're holding positioning, you have space already. You don't have to worry about cutting through angles yet, right? You are maintaining those angles, so just all you need to do is focus on maintaining your angles, and over time, your team will win, right? Your team just gets more value off those angles because if you, I mean, if we just think about it, two shields stacked on top of each other, right? If you got two shields, you can only cover two angles at once. So you take a third angle, someone's going to get value. But also, if you force a team into a 1v1, like a straight up two shields to two shields, if you have an aggressive angle setup, you're going to get more value, right? So here, Pelican does actually a really good job playing this, where he's maintaining angles, but he's not going too aggressive. He's maintaining a vertical angle rather than a horizontal angle because there's a choke. He doesn't really need to worry about it. But just spamming, trying to force as much out as he can on this rotation, making sure there's no flanks, right? He sees Choi gets up to the top of Juice, still just spamming out. He doesn't need to go on anything yet, right? If he goes in, his team can't really help him. Plays back. He notices that he flew first, so he can't really take that 1v1. He just backs up, keeps playing frontline. He uses fly to keep maintaining that angle. Right? Really good pull. They kill Mercy. Good play. Right? And then here, his frontline starts losing advantage. Right? They have to use lamp early, so no lamp. Hawk gets focused down, and frontline is losing this. Right? They use window 2, but what you'll see Pelican does is Pelican gives up some space, and then repositions, sets a really aggressive angle, and is able to punish and play an opportunity. Right? So he's disciplined. His positioning is safe, but he's setting aggressive angles, and he's punishing opportunities when he sees them. Right? He's also got help from his Mercy, and he punishes Violet when he walks forward and does a really, really good job of that. And he's living. He's not pushing where he doesn't need to. He understands that in front, like the other team has the choice of shooting him or shooting the other, like his tanks. His tanks are drawing enough attention that he can just shoot for free. He's not inting forward into Ashe LOS, and he's just living, right? Not pushing too far, lets his tanks get value where they can, and setting that angle and maintaining that angle does everything for his team there, right? So that's Pelican. Also, I wanted to look at some stuff on the hunt versus the hunters. This is also spam, but you'll see kind of the same things that I was talking about here, where his positioning is where the way he positions himself. I should probably full screen it, shouldn't I? Yeah, that would make a lot more sense. But so you'll see the same thing. It's spam versus spam, so same thing we're talking about on attack, right? Pushes a little bit aggressive. This is just for scouting. It's first fight. Tries to find an opportunity, but when he loses advantage, when he loses that resources, he backs up, right? Here's some discipline with where he lands. He plays back. He plays back where he can't just get dinked by a Hanzo, where he can't be pressured by their Ana. And he just lives. All he does is live, right? He's maintaining this angle and making sure their tanks can't play forward for free. His tanks do, make some mistakes, push a little bit too far. He can't really maintain that, and he just gets out. He doesn't need to fight there. But he's farming this copy so fast. Copy is such an important part of playing Echo that if you can just sit here and farm it and get it once every fight and a half, that's insane. Right? But again, spamming, playing patient, playing to live. He doesn't int. He doesn't need to dive on anything. Once he gets copy, though, he can play more aggressively, right? Again, setting angles, understanding his help. He's got a Mercy with him, so he can play way more aggressive. He can fly more vertically, right? Push this a little bit more aggressive. He gets copy. Next fly, he's going to go extremely aggressive, right? Playing to live. He's waiting. Flies in, but he's got copy. He goes way more aggressive. Copies D.Va and goes, right? But he's drawing 4 people back towards him with his copy. Like this is such a good copy, and it's such a good way to get value out of this ult by just pushing extremely aggressively. When your team pushes at the same time, as long as it's communicated, it works out great, right? Really good play from Pelican in general. Team trading out a little bit, but I think he's still playing it extremely well. His team has better spawns, so trading's probably good for them, and goes from there, right? So next we'll look at leave, and let me look at the good timing. So we'll look at leave. Matchup wise, macro wise, breaking it down real quick. Sorry, let me get some water. But uh, so macro wise, this is like a dive comp, which is the hunters are playing like more of a dive, like a little bit of dive spam, and Rain's playing like a full rush, like kind of brawl. So the way dive comp beats brawl is by baiting them into rotations, forcing them to rotate, and setting angles when they can, right? Getting angles off that spam, getting ultimate value off that spam, and punishing brawl when they rotate, right? So what you'll see Leave do is using his mobility to one, set himself up in positions where he can spam, get a lot of value early, but also in positions where he one can't be forced out, hacked and killed, and like rushed on, and he's also in positions to punish rotations, right? So first flies up, sets up, all he's doing is spamming, he's just living. All he's doing is living, scouts, right? Sees their rushing backline, and he goes back and goes to punish, right? He looks to punish someone who's out of position, looks to punish backline. Goes in, he's looking for Lucio. He ends up finding. Really good play. Almost kills it. Kills Moira too, right? And after this, even though it's even, they force out resources. They're up one now, actually. And trading for them is way better because one, they've got Mercy, and two, they've got close spawns, right? So always better for them. Right? So in this matchup, he's again positioning himself where he can. So he's understanding like where his team, like what they're pushing. He understands that if the other team is focusing on his backline, he can focus on them, and they're not going to look at him nearly as much. He's trying to set angles. He's getting spam value early. He's diving on rotations. Right? He understands his macro matchup. He's disciplined with his positioning. Right? Leave does make some mistakes generally though. I do think Leave does push a little bit too aggressive sometimes, but in general he's not, like his mechanics can bail him out of a lot of situations, right? This is actually a really good situation to look at discipline though, where it's like goes in with team, he has fly, he's about to fly, he flies to go finish kill, but he maintains his fly so he can't be rushed down, and he flies back out, right? It keeps maintaining an angle this whole time, right? Obviously, mechanics, as we said, are a big part of it, but the way he positions himself, the way he punishes rotations, the way he's setting angles, the way he's disciplined with his positioning, and isn't over aggressive, is, what really makes him such a great Echo, right? Sets himself up to spam and then punish rotations. And it's going to be the same thing here, right? They're pushing through space as a dive comp, or as like a dive spam variant, so he's got to set angles aggressively and just try and live, right? He can go a little bit more aggressive because his Mercy has Valk, right? A lot of times when you're playing like these Echo Mercy comps versus a rush comp versus like especially like a 6-man comp, they're going to try and focus on your Mercy. If your Mercy has Valk, you can go way more aggressive because she has a free out for the most part. As long as you're marking Sombra, she has a free out. So she goes a little bit more aggressive, spams out an angle, his team absorbs, and finds an opportunity, right? Pelican gets slept, really good sleep from far away, and they punish. And then from here, right, he understands that other team is focusing backwards. He pushes back, like the other team is being pulled back, and now he's got resources back. He can look for opportunities. Here's that Mercy. Moira has no fade, punishes, right? Sees Lucio low, knows they can go on that later. D.Va gets low, punishes, flies on Echo, flies on Lucio on hack. Overall, this mid fight looks really, really good from him. Right, punishing opportunities, but also he's extremely disciplined with how he's positioning himself, playing to live. Again, I'm repeating myself, but these kind of habits that he has built up are extremely fundamental to being like a really good Echo player. I do think that Rain's 6-man macro is extremely strong, and they're really good at playing that comp, so they do end up pulling that back. And I don't know why they don't get Jinmu's EMP off. I didn't really see that. I didn't really pay too much attention to that, but um, yeah. So like there, like you can see that he goes aggressive on opportunities that he finds, and he pushes them, but he's not over aggressive, right? He understands where attention's being focused and what it means for him and what it means for what opportunities he can push, right? And then last, look at Fleta. So this is, all right, let me pull up. Sorry. So also good examples of patience and discipline with positioning. Also punishing opportunities where they're playing like Shock is playing like a very anti-dive rush comp, right? They're playing really hard to punish dragons on dives, also rush backline when they can. You see Fleta sets an angle. He goes break turret, plays to live, right? Plays really aggressive to punish tanks and force out tanks. He understands that Shock's comp can't operate if their tanks are forced out. If they can't hold space or they can't push aggressively, they have to give up the map to the dragons, and if the dragons have map control, it's really hard for Brawl to win. So, pressuring angles, right? He uses fly, plays to live for a second, gets hacked, backs up, plays to live, but both support ults come out, has to get really aggressive off that. Flies, looks for opportunities, but doesn't overcommit, right? He's disciplined enough. He lands in a place where he can live. He plays to live and spams out for a little bit. Waits for next rotation. Waits for next engage. Right? He's got fly again. He can go a little bit more aggressive because he's got fly. He can glide in pretty aggressively, but he's got an out. Right? Again, he understands what help he has. He understands what resources he has. Flies up, sees an opportunity, punishes D.Va, and can maintain this angle. He knows he's close to copy. He can play way more aggressive. EMP comes out, can play aggressive again, and just gets in there. Right now he's got nothing to be scared of. The EMP, really good play. Right? Hopefully after looking at those kind of points, you can see a lot of these things that I'm pointing out. And the next timestamp for this is 29:30. Got a little bit more Fleta. So his team just lost fight for second point. Ends up dying. And then this is kind of the same thing where, sure, we don't want to end fly in the middle of the enemy team, but if we know we're going to win the fight here and we know we're investing a bunch of resources forward, that's okay. Because when I go in and I invest a bunch forward, I'm banking on us winning this. And if we're investing so much forward, as long as we all go at the same time, we have a really high chance of winning, right? So we know we're going in with, we have double shield, get a lot of spam value, going for a pull, EMP, and Flood is going to set up. Go really aggressive off of it. Lip goes for EMP. Pull comes in. Big sticky, big beam, right? Fleta goes extremely aggressive off this because he knows what his team's doing, right? Team's investing a lot forward. He can go aggressive with that. He's understanding of what help is going in, where team's attention is going to be. If the team's EMP, they can't focus him down, right? So, good play from him. Really, really good play. Obviously, he's got the mechanics to punish it. He's got the mechanics to capitalize, but either way. But like you see at the beginning, he's patient. He's not forcing anything too aggressive. He's waiting, waits for his opportunity. He's disciplined, punishes opportunity when it comes. Right? He's not forcing anything. He's playing with what he's being given. Okay. Another situation would be 31. I need to full screen this. Sorry. All right, so this is another one. Team just lost fight. Just plays to live. He flies a little bit just to set an angle, but he doesn't go too aggressive because his team's going to keep spamming out, right? He's just playing to live, right? He doesn't need to go too hard. They flux, he goes extremely aggressive with this, right? But again, he flies and he ends up in a safe spot. Like no matter what's happening, even if he wants to go aggressive, as if his team's not winning there, he's got a way to get out, right? He leaves enough fly to end up alive. He flies on opportunity, sees that Choi's close to being demaxed, flies on that. I believe he's got orb during this. Here goes in with Dragon. Punishes. He's got people set up on angles. He's got Void on high ground. So this is a really easy opportunity to push. He's got a lot of help. And then, again, playing super aggressive. He's punishing. He's getting value where he can. And plays really well from there. Right? It's just extremely disciplined play in general. Right? Pushes a little bit too far, but team helps. Keeps going in. Void's got a flank so he can DMAC. right? He knows where his team is. Knows where his team is, knows what's happening, knows what's going on, understands who's helping him, who can help him, who can't, where the team's looking, all that kind of stuff, right? And then last one I want to look at is right here. So just kind of a creativity thing, right? So, like kind of was talking about with copies. Um, sorry, let me just get a little bit of water. Right. Um, so just something that I see from a lot of really good players that other players can't really do or don't really do is just setting yourself up to make plays, right? Kind of like what we saw Pelican do on the first clip when we watched him versus the Shock on Hollywood. Fleta sets himself up in a spot. He hides, right? It's easy. Like we understand, like sure, like the Shock's a pro team. Owl teams are pro teams. They're professionals. They should be doing a lot of things, but they're gonna forget things, right? Not gonna check corners. So he sets up in a place. He doesn't do this all the time because if he does it all the time, it's predictable. Gets a little creative, hides in a corner, sets up, waits for his team to come out, and once his team's ready, he's going to push aggressive and look for an opportunity. He's got copy, so he can do stuff like this, right? If he doesn't have copy, this is extremely risky. But because he's got copy, he can go aggressively. He goes in, makes a play, insanely good play. Forces out, he kills Sim, and forces out block. It's insane, right? Pins, kills Nero, really good play. Like actually, it's fantastic. But he knows he's got copy. He understands what resources he has and understands what he can push with, right? He's just being super smart with his decision making, right? Not being an idiot. Really good play in general. Like, this is why I think Flood is top 2, 3 Echo in the world, right? Could be 1, right? This is one opportunity where I want to talk about like trading real quick, just like very small thing. So it's last fight, Brawl versus like a kind of spam comp. Understanding when trading is okay. Trading is okay when you have a Mercy for the most part. You can res backline for the resing a DPS is a little bit harder. But if you go in and force out a lot of resources, and you're gonna have like a Tracer and a Ball follow up, perfectly fine, right? Legion comes in on Lucio. Legion's gonna come in. Ball's gonna go in. Slam. Lip's gonna be able to follow up. So Fleta can go as long as he goes in and hits his shots and forces out enough resources, Lip and Fate can follow up on it. So he goes in super aggressive, tries to go for 1 kill. If he trades 1 for 1, that is awesome for his team because they've got better spawns. He goes in, forces out enough resources from Violet, Lip and Fate able to follow up. They get a ton of value. So those are the kind of things I wanted to look at. Quick review. Um, like these Echo players are the best in the world for a reason, or for actually multiple reasons, and those reasons are having extremely strong mechanics and extremely consistent mechanics. They understand what help they have and what help their team can give them. Also understanding what attention the enemy team is putting towards them and where it's not being put towards them. Um, they understand that one of their primary goals is to set angles and play for that early spam phase and get value off of that. They understand playing their life and understand the value of like that early spam as well as the value of threatening that dive, right? They understand that staying alive is just going to get them more value over time than going in and trying to make plays on stuff that they can't force, right? But when they do see plays, they are one disciplined about their timing, disciplined about when they go, disciplined about like using their resources, but they're not afraid to punish opportunities, right? They're opportunistic. They're pushing things that they see, but within the realm of understanding the prior points. And then they have a very good understanding of the macro going around them, how the fight should go, what they should be looking for, what opportunities they should be pushing, and just understanding how their comp is supposed to beat the enemy's comp. So yeah,